Very well, continuing with this scenario, let's analyze the forces, trying to evaluate the resources of each faction, strengths and weaknesses, contrasting them with the conditions in which the battle will take place. Within the given conditions, this scenario will occur under Arctic lighting conditions, with a night vision range, NVR, of only 4 hexes, which already presents us with one of the first great advantages of the Finnish forces, which is a range of their weapons of 4 hexes, double the range of the Soviet units, only 2 hexes. This fact will allow them to fire with all their firepower on the Soviet units as soon as they enter the NVR of the scenario. The Soviet units, despite having tremendous firepower, 5 or 6, depending on the unit in question, will be able to counterattack with only half of their firepower until they approach 2 hexes from the enemy units. Another relevant aspect related to night conditions is the fact that Finnish units, as defenders in this scenario, do not initially have freedom of movement. They will be placed on the no-move marker, which is usually a major disadvantage, as we saw in the clips of the escape from Veliki Luki scenario, previously published on this channel. In this scenario, Finnish forces will be positioned in favorable conditions, on the only elevation available, which is the island of Metchishori, with up to 2 levels of elevation over the surrounding terrain, which will allow a wide line of sight over all possible enemy advance routes across the terrain, with minimal need to move to reach better defensive positions, neutralizing the possible advantages of the Soviets in this regard. As defenders, the Finns have the possibility of positioning up to 25% of their squads as hidden, in addition to any leaders and support weapons that accompany these squads. With this, you can position up to 3 of your 9 squads as hidden by the terrain. Given the rules of night conditions, these units can position themselves in this way on non-concealed terrain. Another relevant aspect in this scenario, and due to the night conditions, is the fact that the Soviet units are subject to the rules of straying, under which, for each hex the Soviets advance through unlit hexes, it will be necessary to roll dice to check the possibility of straying. Since Soviet units are considered normal, special rule of scenario 2, this possibility of going astray increases greatly. If the result of the colored die is 6, a result of the white die equal 2 or less than 4 implies a go astray, meaning that the Soviets end their turn very far from their original intention, breaking the integrity of their offensive lines with alarming frequency. A tremendously relevant aspect is the fact that the scenario needs to be completed in only 6 turns, which puts enormous pressure on the Soviet units, which must accelerate their advance to be prepared to attack the Finnish positions by the 4th turn at the latest, to have any chance of achieving their objectives, which is to control hexes 2603 and 26M1. This factor, combined with the high possibility of straying, will certainly take a heavy toll on the Soviet forces, which must advance over open terrain vulnerable to the firepower of the Finnish defensive positions. The Finns will have 2 wire markers that, if well positioned, can further slow the Soviet advance and, ultimately, contribute to a Finnish victory. In addition to all these considerations, Soviet units using ski mode will not be able to fire their support weapons while using ski, reducing their effective firepower. Also related to night vision conditions, the Finns will have 9 extra concealment markers, in addition to those used during the initial positioning. These dummy markers, as determined by Special Scenario Rule 3, can be placed up to 3 hexes outside the hexes with overlay, which, combined with the same Special Scenario Rule, which allows the positioning of a real unit in this area, will have the effect of making the Soviet advance even more cautious, slowing down their advance. The Finnish units also have some special characteristics. Among others, they do not suffer from cowering. The value of their attacks when not accompanied by a leader is not reduced in the case of a double dice result. They can attempt to self-rally in any rally phase, and they are able to use skis. The majority of Soviet forces should start their movement from the northern edge of the scenario and, with the limited time available and the possibility of straying, we can guarantee with a high degree of certainty that the Soviets should try to start the scenario from the shortest possible distance from the Finnish positions, which should possibly place them on the northern edge of map 26, making it easier to direct Finnish firepower in this direction, creating a true killing zone in this area. One of the great tactical advantages of the Soviets, which is the possibility of forming the so-called human waves and thus allowing a faster movement towards enemy positions, human waves have 8 movement factors, will be seriously compromised by the already mentioned straying effects, in addition to the necessary prerequisites for the human waves to be formed, among which the need for units present in 3 adjacent contiguous hexes with an average of at least 2 units per hex, the presence of a leader, in addition to the need for at least one of the units to have line of sight over the unit that will be attacked. All these prerequisites, in addition to the loss of concealment markers, added to the possibility of stray, makes this possibility of triggering a human wave unlikely, and if it occurs, it will place the Soviet units under the full firepower of the Finns. One of the Soviets' trump cards are the Aerosans, which carry anti-aircraft machine guns and have good firepower, but their firepower will be limited by night conditions and the Finnish forces' possession of anti-tank rifles, which will make approaching the enemy's defensive positions more dangerous. The special rule for Scenario 4 allows the Soviet squads participating in the second wave to split into half squads, as long as these units enter the scenario transported by the Aerosans. However, this implies the loss of cloaking markers by the transported units, which makes it questionable to use this means of transport, unless the Soviets choose to attack the Finnish positions from an advance from the south, with the burden of having to travel a longer route and spending precious movement factors in a scenario with only 6 turns. We must remember that in addition to the possibility of straying, with nighttime conditions vehicles need an extra movement point to enter a hex in open terrain, halving their range per turn. With these considerations in mind, the initial impression is that the Finns have some important advantages over the attacking forces, and to see if this is true, we did some research on the RAW and ASL Scenario Archives websites. On the RAW, Remote Online Automate Record, website, of the 8 games recorded, 5 were Soviet victories, while the Finns won 13. On the ASL Scenario Archive, of the 7 games recorded, 5 resulted in Finnish victories and only 2 were Soviet victories, which confirms our initial impression. With the odds heavily favoring the Finns, it is possible to make a balancing move allowed by the scenario, which is to add an 8-0 leader for this faction to the units that will enter the scenario in the second wave, which will be done. With the strategic considerations made, let's move on to positioning the units.
The Finnish units should position themselves on the elevated areas of the map, with the possibility of positioning a squad with a leader and support weapon outside these sectors up to 3 hexes away. For this positioning, we will assume that most of the Soviet units will start their movement from the northern edge of map 26. In this way, we will try to concentrate most of our firepower oriented in this direction. Setup. The Finns should set up first. These units should be positioned on the elevated position on maps 26 and 27. A squad of 548 will be positioned on hex 26M1, a hex considered an objective for the Soviet forces, together with the leader 9-1. In this hex they will attempt to create a foxhole, taking into account the fact that entrenchment with snow on the ground implies a modifier of +2. As mentioned earlier, a large part of the Finnish firepower will be directed to the northern edge of map 26 with squads 548 with 2 light machine guns and an anti-tank rifle on the northern edge of the elevated area. The first anti-tank rifle carried by a squad 447 and the leader 8-0 will be positioned in a hidden position in a more advanced position in open terrain, SSR-3. During night conditions, the units can be deployed hidden or concealed in open terrain. The other anti-tank rifle will be positioned on map elevation 27 with a squad of 548. A squad of 447 will be positioned on the second victory hex 26S3 and another on hex 26Q2. After positioning the real units, on which the concealment markers are placed, we will deploy the dummy units on the open terrain up to 3 hexes from the high ground. All units deployed on the terrain, dummy or not, will be positioned on the no-move markers indicating that they initially have no freedom of movement. The wire markers will be deployed in a concealed manner on hexes 26S1 and 26R2. As a result of the night conditions, 3 squads, plus support weapons and accompanying leaders, will be hidden on the terrain, in addition to stacking outside the high ground. With this, we conclude the Finnish setup, and we will deploy the first wave of Soviet forces that will enter the map on skis. These units will position themselves on the northern edge of map 26 under the cloaking markers, of which 4 will be real and 2 will be fictional, and will move directly towards the elevation. Rally phase Soviet turn 1. Wind change 6, 3, 9, no wind change. With the result of the dice 6, 3. In any other turn except the first, there would be a reduction in the night vision range to 3. Prep fire phase. No actions. Movement phase. The Soviet units will enter the scenario, starting this movement with the dummy units E and F. After entering the first hex, it will be necessary to roll dice to evaluate the possibility of these units straying for each new hex that these units intend to enter. If the result of the colored die is 6, the unit will stray, with the white die determining which direction this straying will occur. These units, under the cloaking marker, have the advantage of having 6 movement factors. At the end of its movement, the Soviet unit comes within the vision range of the Finnish stack in hex 26J3 that could attempt to launch the first star shell. The Finns choose not to perform this action because if successful, they would lose their hidden status and be placed on the ground under a concealment marker. In addition, with the eventual illumination of the area, the Soviets would not suffer the effects of getting lost if they passed through the illuminated area. The movement phase goes smoothly, and all the units involved in this first wave move without straying, which is excellent. Defensive fire phase. No actions. Advancing fire phase. No actions. At this point, the filter for night conditions is placed, giving an Arctic night atmosphere to the scenario. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. The Soviet units advance 1 hex towards the elevated positions. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase Feen turn 1. Wind change 3, 1, no wind change. Prep fire phase. As some of the hidden Finnish units have vision over Soviet units 4 hexes away, within the scenario's NVR, they could attempt to launch starships. However, by making this attempt, and if successful, they will expose their position, losing the hidden condition and weighing the pros and cons, they choose not to launch starshells. Squad 447 and the leader 9-1 will attempt to entrench themselves in Hex 26M1. The modifiers will be +2, entrenchment with snow on the ground, -1, leader, and a result of 4 or less will be required for the maneuver to be carried out. 3, 1, 4, and the Finns succeed and create a foxhole. The units are placed under the foxhole marker and gain an IT marker and will not be able to take any actions this turn. Movement phase. No actions. Defensive fire phase. The Finns are out of the Soviets' line of sight and the Soviets cannot take any action. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. No actions. Close combat phase. No actions. Alright friends, let's interrupt the clip at this point as the Soviet forces prepare to launch their second wave of attack. The advanced Soviet units are already close to Metchishori Island and should have the Finnish units in their sights in the next turn. This first turn went by without any noteworthy events and was characterized by the non-events, specifically the straying that could have disturbed the Soviet movement phase. With this, Soviets were able to advance without a single stray. Worthy of note was the lucky roll of the dice by the Finns, who managed to produce a foxhole against all odds. I hope to see you soon. Namaste. Let's move on to turn 2 of scenario 169 of the Hakaa Paalle Advanced Squad Leader module. In the first turn, the Soviets of the first wave were able to move without suffering the effects of being stray and moved without any complications towards the Finnish positions. Some of these units advanced to positions within the line of sight of hidden Finnish units, 4 hexes away, which preferred not to fire on the Soviets because they would lose their hidden and concealed status, preferring to wait for the enemy to get closer before firing. The possibility of losing their hidden status led the Finns to choose not to attempt to launch starshells, which in addition to exposing their units, if successful, could light the path of the Soviets, eliminating the possibility of the enemy getting stray. At this point, the Soviets will prepare the entry of the second wave into the scenario. This wave will be formed, as we saw previously, by 3 combat aerosans equipped with anti-aircraft machine guns, 4 firepower, 8 hexes range, 6 first-line squads 5 to 7, which can be divided into 2 half squads, without the need for a leader or test check, as long as they enter the scenario transported by the transport aerosans. At this point, the Soviets have the first doubt, which is the convenience of transforming the squads into half squads, because from the moment these units enter the scenario transported by the aerosans, they lose the cloaking markers, losing the advantages related to this marker, among which we highlight the possibility of being able to use 6 movement factors. Furthermore, one of the victory conditions requires that the Finns do not win 18 or more victory points, and the transport aerosans count as 3 victory points, 1 aerosan +2 from the crew if this crew is eliminated, while the combat aerosans are worth 4 victory points, 1 aerosan +1 main armament +2 from the crew. These aerosans are unarmored or have low armor, and can be destroyed even by infantry fire, which makes their use in the vicinity of enemy forces risky. if the Soviets lose the 3 combat aerosans, 12 victory points, and 3 transport aerosans, 6 victory points, they will lose the battle, even without having suffered any infantry casualties. In this way, the combat aerosans will advance cautiously through the northern sector of Map 26, while the transport aerosans without troops transported will enter this same sector but will remain away from the combat area. The Soviets choose to reformulate the infantry in this second wave, and half of the half squads are reconstituted into squads and will use the skis to advance, maintaining the cloaking marker, and will enter the map at the rear of the first wave. The second half will lose the cloaking marker, whose markers will be available to be used as dummies, and will enter transported by transport aerosans through the northern sector of Map 28, keeping the cloaking marker. The passengers and raiders of an aerosan are characterized by the placement of the units on the aerosan marker. Once the second wave of Soviet attack has been deployed, we go to Rally Phase Soviet Turn 2. Wind Change 8. No Wind Change. Prep Fire Phase. At this point, Soviet units that have vision over enemy units, it is not necessary for them to be known, could launch starshells to light their way, avoiding the effect of misdirection. They decide not to perform this activity because, by moving, without assault movement, within the enemy's field of vision, they may lose the cloaking marker and the advantage of being able to move using 6 movement factors in a scenario of only 6 turns, and, right or wrong, they choose not to try to launch starshells. Movement Phase. Initially, the units transported by the aerosans will be moved on Map 28. From the moment they enter the first hex, with the expenditure of 2 movement factors, the aerosan will be exposed to the effects of being stray and must roll dice to assess its occurrence. After moving for 4 hexes, the aerosan strays, and the next roll of dice will determine the direction, colored die, and whether the involuntary fire effect will occur, which will occur if the dice result is a double. 6-1. This aerosan will move in the direction corresponding to the number 6 until its movement points are exhausted. The second aerosan moves and, like the previous vehicle, strays when entering the 4th hex. This aerosan will spend all its movement points in the direction corresponding to the result of the one on the colored die. The third aerosan strays as soon as it enters the board, and will use all its movement points in the direction corresponding to the number 6 colored die. Upon entering hex 27L4, this aerosan enters the line of sight of the Finns in hex 27K8, within night range, NVR, losing its concealment marker. In this hex, it will suffer an attack from the Finns with 5 firepower from the squad and 1 firepower from the anti-tank rifle, firepower equivalent in high explosives, of the anti-tank rifle. the Aerosan that lost its concealment marker suffers an attack with 6 firepower, while the transported units, raiders and passengers, will be attacked with 2 firepower for keeping their concealment markers. The modifiers will be -2, FFMO and FFNAM, +1 relative to the hindrance of the night condition. The Finnish units will lose the hidden and concealment condition because they are in the range of the scenarios NBR. 7-1 to 6, the Aerosan becomes immobilized. 6 in the 2 firepower column is a pin test check on the transported units, with the immediate consequence of the Soviets losing their concealment. 11. The leader becomes pinged. The half squads pass. Let's move on to the Soviet units that move around board 26. The first unit strays after spending 4 movement factors and will move towards position to using the last 2 movement factors to advance to hexes. The second and third units continue without getting stray. The fourth unit goes astray after using 2 movement factors and will use the 4 movement factors towards position 5. The 5th unit progresses without problems and the 6th unit goes astray using 2 movement factors in direction 2. The first Combat Aerosan goes astray after using 4 movement points and will use the remaining 26 movement points to move in the direction corresponding to number 4. Since we have a double 4, the so-called involuntary fire, jitter fire, may occur. Since the result of the dice is 8, which in the involuntary fire table implies that the unit that moves makes the involuntary fire if it is not cloaked, stealthy or normal. Since this unit is normal, the involuntary fire does not occur and the Aerosan will move. To change direction to continue the astray, this Aerosan will use movement points to stop, restart and change the Aerosan's arc of coverage so that it can move in the correct direction, using 3 movement points to perform this initial maneuver. This Aerosan, upon entering the hex with the Soviet unit in good order at 26B8, should have stopped moving astray and could continue its movement without needing to roll any dice to evaluate new astrays in the desired direction. The second Aerosan goes astray after using 8 movement points and will move towards number 6 until hex 26G10, which is the limit of the scenario, stops moving and becomes temporarily immobilized, TI. And the third Combat Aerosan goes astray after using only 6 movement points. It will move in the direction equivalent to the number 6 and becomes TI in hex 26G10. So far, 100% of the Aerosans have gone astray, which highlights the risks of moving at night and makes us wonder if we shouldn't have launched starshells to try to move more safely, even at the risk of losing the cloaking or concealment markers. The 3 transport Aerosans simply enter the board, ending their movement there. The skiing unit in 26G2 goes astray since the first roll of the dice, it goes astray towards position 4. In hex 27G10 it enters the line of sight of an enemy unit in good order in 27K8, and since one of the conditions to stop the astray is to approach enemy units in good order, It stops in this hex, ending its movement. In fact, the units in a stray position should not move towards enemy units in good order, which is not the case anyway. Unit in 26G4 moves and enters the hex with Finnish units hidden in 26J3, and since this marker is a dummy, while the Finns have real units, this Soviet marker is eliminated from the scenario. Soviet unit in 26G6 goes astray on the first roll of the dice and will go astray towards 4, ending its movement in 27G10. Unit in 26G8 moves to M5. In this hex it suffers an attack from the Finns in 26L2, who give up the cloaking marker. This attack will be carried out with the squad's firepower, with 5 firepower reduced by half to firepower because the Soviets are under the cloaking marker. The Finns lose the cloaking marker. The modifiers will be -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, nighttime hindrance. 4 -1, 3, 1 morale check. And the Soviet sniper can be activated, which Jim forgets to process. Attention Jim. With this result, the Soviets lose their cloaking. 3. The squad passes. Soviet unit at 26G7 moves without straying to L4. In this hex, the Finnish units at 26L3 attack, which give up their cloaking condition. This attack will have 5 firepower, doubled because it is a point-blank shot, held by the Soviet cloaking. The modifiers will be -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, hindrance due to night conditions, so an attack with 4 firepower -1. 3 -1, 2, reduction due to casualty of one of the squads to be chosen randomly, followed by 2 morale checks. The Soviets lose the cloaking marker. With one of the squads reduced to half squad, we will proceed to the 2 morale check. 10 + 2, 12, the squad breaks. 6 + 2, 8, the half squad is pinned. The next Soviet unit is stray after moving to 26G4 and will move towards position 6 direction. During the movement it enters hex 26I5 occupied by a Finnish dummy who is eliminated, heading to K6. Defensive fire phase. The units in 26L3 fire on the Soviets in the adjacent hex L4 with half firepower, 2.5 subsequent final fire. This attack will be with 2 firepower doubled to 4 for being fired at point-blank range. The modifier will be +1 for night conditions. 6 + 1, 7, 1 pin test check that Jim considers as 1 morale check. The half squad breaks. The squad does not break again. The Finns make an illegal shot from hex 26L1 on the Soviets in M5 with 6 firepower +1, night condition. 12. The Soviet squad is not affected, and the machine gun becomes non-functional. Advancing fire phase. The Soviets in 26M5 fire with 4 firepower, 6 firepower reduced by half, advancing fire increased by 1 to 4 firepower. The modifier +1 for night hindrance will not occur because the Finns are 1 level above the Soviets. 9 is a miss, and the Finns who were attacked gain freedom of movement. At this point, the markers related to the gun flash from the shots should be removed, which we will do later. Rout phase. The broken units at 26L4 take off their skis and move in low crawl to L5. Advance phase. As the most significant movement in this phase, The Soviet cloaking unit at 26K4, where the leader 9-1 is, moves to L5. The rest of the Soviet units move towards the Finns. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase. Finns turn 2. Wind change 2, 3. No wind or night vision range, NVR, change. Attempt to restore light machine gun function at 26L2. A roll of 1 restores, 6 permanently breaks the machine gun and is eliminated from the game. 6. The machine gun is eliminated. Leader attempts 9-1 to restore morale of units, with broken morale at 26L5. Leader loses cloaking. 10-1, 9. The squad does not restore morale, and since the dice result is higher than the squad's morale, the DAIM marker remains. 4-1, leader, plus 4, DAIM marker, is 7, and the half squad restores morale. Prep fire phase. The Finns will attempt to launch Starshell. The squad at 26L3 will attempt to launch a Starshell at L6 from 3 hexes away, needing 2 or less to succeed. 4. Unsuccessful. Squad at 27K7 will attempt to launch a Starshell at H8. 2. Successful. And let's see where this Starshell will move and be placed. Colored die 3, direction, colored die 5, distance, and the Starshell will be deposited at 27C6. The Finnish squad at 27K7 will fire with the anti-tank rifle at the immobilized Aerosan at 27L4 4 hexes away. At this distance, the number needed to hit the Aerosan is 10, vehicle target type. The modifiers will be -1, Aerosan size, small target, +1, night hindrance. 7. The Aerosan is hit. The basic number needed to affect the Aerosan will be 6 or less, with the modifier of +1 because the rifle is smaller than 25 mm for shots at a distance of 3 to 6 hexes. Double 3 + 1, 7, and the Aerosan is not affected because with this shot in the hull it would be immobilized, which already happened in the previous phase. Movement phase. As there was already an attack on one of the Finnish units in the previous turn, the best Finnish leader, 9-1, will be able to try to gain the freedom of movement that will happen if the roll of a dice results in a number less than the ELR of the Finns in this scenario, that is 3. 6. The Finns do not gain freedom of movement, should have rolled only 1 die. The squad at 26L3 moves to L2. Defensive fire phase. The 2 half squads at 27L4 will fire on the Finns at K8. They will fire with 4 firepower reduced by half because they are beyond the ideal firing range of these units, 2 hexes, with the modifier of +1, height advantage. 7 + 1, 8, without success. Advancing fire phase. The Finnish squad at 26L4 fires on the Soviet squad at M5 using assault fire, with 4 firepower +1, night hindrance. 9 + 1, 10, without success. The gun flash markers are eliminated at the end of the advancing fire phase. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. The Finnish squad at 26L2 moves to M2. Close combat phase. The illumination caused by the Starshell is eliminated. None of the units without a concealment marker qualify to gain this marker. We move on to the rally phase. Soviet turn 3. With this, we end this episode, and we will see you in the third turn of this battle. Turn 3 of scenario S-169 Night Fans. Rally phase, third Soviet turn. Dice roll to assess wind change. 1, 4, no wind change. Soviet unit attempts to rally with leader 9-1. Modifiers will be +4 for the DM marker, -1 for the leader. 6, 4, 10, the unit's morale is not recovered, and the DM marker remains because the dice result is higher than the Soviet unit's morale. Prep fire phase. Soviet units will attempt to launch starshells. Soviet leader 9-1 will attempt to launch a starshell 3 hexes away over hex 26 cubic meters, needing a 4 or less on the result of a die. With this launch mode, in case of success, there will be a deviation from the starshell's positioning. 1. Success. This starshell will move following the direction determined by the roll of 2 dice, the red die determining the direction and the white die determining the distance. 3. And the starshell is positioned over hex 27J1. Huff squad with leader 8-0 will attempt to launch starshell on hex 27K7, needing 2 or less for success. 5. Unsuccessful. Leader 8-0 will attempt to launch a starshell over hex 27K7 using the same launch mode. 1. Success. 3. 5, and the starshell will be positioned at 27F4. Movement phase. Unit at 26C5 will begin movement towards the Finnish positions. This unit will need to roll the dice to determine if it has gone astray. This unit moves without straying to the hex 26F3, hex adjacent to an illuminated area. From there it can continue without the risk of straying until it uses up the 6 movement factors to which it is entitled. Unit at 26C8 begins its movement and advances without being affected by strain. Huff squad at 27N1 begins its movement and advances without straying using the 4 movement factors to which it is entitled. This unit entered the scenario transported by Aerosan and lost the right to the cloaking marker, which would allow movement with 6 movement factors. The second Huff squad also continues its way to 2705, where it eliminates the Finnish cloaking dummy. An action that should have occurred in the rally phase, but that Jim will do now, is to reconstitute a squad from the Huff squads at 27L4, which by the special rules of this scenario the Soviets can do without needing the help of a leader and without going through a test check. This stack can initially move without needing to evaluate the possibility of straying because it has the Finnish unit known as 27K8 and moves to N5 hex, from which it loses line of sight of the enemy and will need to assist straying. In 2707 it suffers straying using the last movement factors in the direction indicated by the result of the die. As it does not have the 3 movement factors necessary to enter 27N7 elevation with snow, and ends its movement under a TI marker, temporarily immobilized. A new reconstitution of Squad 5 to 7 is carried out from Huff squads in 27D7. This squad continues in hexes adjacent to the illuminated area until 27H7. One of the units in 27G10 moves to the unilluminated area and continues, without the need to assist straying to the hex adjacent to the fins in 27K8. In this hex it suffers an attack from the fins with 6 firepower, doubled to 12 because the fire is at point-blank range, reduced by half because the target is concealed. Therefore, the firing will be done with 6 firepower with modifiers of -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1 for the hindrance of night conditions. 5, 3, 8, -1 to 7. It is a normal morale check with the Soviets losing the cloaking marker. 5. The squad passes. Squad in 26M5 moves towards the hex adjacent to the illuminated area, then continues to O3 where it again passes the straying test and ascends to hex P2. In this hex it suffers an attack from the Finnish squad in 26Q2 with 8 firepower, reduced to 4 because the squad is under the concealment marker. The modifiers are -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, hindrance of night conditions. 4 -1, 7. Jim considers it as the fins covering, which does not happen with Finnish units due to the rules for the fins, and it is a normal morale check. 5, 4, 9. Soviet squad has its morale broken. Huff squad at 26L5 moves toward the hex adjacent to the illuminated area testing for straying and from there heads to 26Q4. Unit at 26G10 moves to adjacent hexes to the illuminated area and continues to J2 where it suffers a subsequent first fire from the fins in an adjacent hex. The fire will be with 3.5 firepower, 2.5 FP from the unit and 1 FP from the anti-tank rifle, doubled by the point-blank fire, held by the Soviets' cloaking marker. The fire will be made with 2 firepower -1. 2, 6, 8, -1 to 7, with no effect, and the Soviets continue to 27K7. In this hex the Finns use a risky strategy and launch a final protective fire on the Soviets. The fire will be with 2 firepower -1. 6, 4, 10. The Soviets are not affected, and the Finns have their morale broken. 26F10 to J6. 26G4 to M4. 26G5 to M4. 26G5 moves to H5 and suffers a straying and dislocation to C3. 26G3 to L4. Defensive fire phase. No effects. Advancing fire phase. The Soviets choose not to fire. At the end of this phase the effects of the gun flashes cease. Rout phase. 27K8 to L8 in low crawl. The Soviets should have started this phase first. 26P2 to O3. Advance phase. The Soviet units advance 1 hex, except for the stack under the TI marker. Close combat phase. The unit at 27H7 recovers the concealment marker. The TI marker must be removed from the Soviet stack, and at the end of close combat phase, the effects of starshells should cease. Rally phase, third turn of the Finns. Wind change. 6.4. No wind change. Since the red die is 6, there will be a change in luminosity, NVR. The white die determines the change, and with the result of 4, and since starshell has already been thrown in this scenario, the NVR increases from 4 to 5 hexes. The Finns can attempt the auto-rally, and will attempt to do so with the unit in hex 27L8. The modifiers will be +4 for the DAIM marker, +1 for the auto-rally. 6.4.10. The auto-rally does not occur, and the DAIM marker remains on the Finnish unit, dice result greater than the unit's morale. Attempt to rally by the Soviet squad in 26L5 with the modifiers -1, leader. 6.3.9, -1 to 8, the squad recovers morale. Prep fire phase. Unit hidden in 26K3 gives up concealment and will fire on the enemy units in the adjacent hex. Fire with 7 firepower, doubled because it is at point-blank range, halved again by the Soviet cloaking marker. Fire with 6 firepower +1, hindrance due to night conditions. 9 +1, 10, no effect. Fire from 26M to on L3 with 2 firepower +1. 3 +1, 4, 1 morale check, and the Soviets lose the cloaking marker and the dummy marker L is eliminated. 4 +1, 5, the Soviets pass. Fire from 26L9 on the Soviets in L3 with 4 firepower +1. 5 +1, 6, normal morale check. 10. The Soviets have their morale broken. Fire from 26Q2 on R3 with 4 firepower +1. 6 +1, 7, pin test check that Jim does not consider. Squad in 26J3 gives up cloaking and fires on the Soviets in adjacent hex with 4 firepower +1. 9 +1, 10, no effect. Movement phase. The Finns will try to gain freedom of movement by rolling a die whose result must be lower than the Finns' ELR, therefore requiring a result of 1 or 2. However, reading the freedom of movement rules more carefully, one of the ways to gain freedom of movement when they see a known enemy unit, and in this case the Finnish stack at 26M1, L1K3J3Q2 and 27L8 should be guaranteed their freedom of movement without having to roll the dice to do so. Squad moves from 26M1 to N1. The leader 9-1 at 26M1 will move and will try to hit the squad in hex S1 to make it gain freedom of movement. The Finns have the ability to use skis, and since they are at a level 3 elevation, they will be able to use the bonus of 2 movement factors provided by units that use skis to descend 1 elevation level, which will increase the range of this leader. To do so, he spends 1 movement factor to leave the foxhole. With this movement he is under the sights of the Soviet unit under cloaking marker C at 27L7, 4 hexes away. The cloaking marker C is removed and reveals 2 squads 6 to 8 that will fire on the Finnish leader. The fire will be with 12 firepower, halved to 6, because the target is beyond the ideal range of the Soviets, halved again to 3, because the leader is under the concealment marker. The modifiers will be -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, night vision conditions. Therefore, an unlikely fire with 2 firepower -1. 6 -1, 5, normal morale check, with the leader losing the concealment marker. 10, Unfortunately, the Finnish leader breaks, and the one residual fire marker is deposited on the attacked hex. Defensive fire phase. Units under cloaking marker G at 26J4 reveal themselves and will fire on the Finns in the adjacent hex at 26J3. This attack will be with 7 firepower, doubled to 14 firepower because it is a point-blank fire with the modifiers of +1, night conditions, -1 for the Soviet leader. Therefore, 12 firepower fire without modifiers. 7. 1 morale check. 10 + 1, 11, the Finnish leader breaks. 5 + 1, 6, and the squad passes. Firing from 26L5 on K3 with 2 firepower. The modifiers will be +1, height advantage, -1, leader. Therefore, firing with 2 firepower without modifiers. 11. Unsuccessful. Advancing fire phase. The Finnish squad at 26N1 gives up concealment and fires on the Soviets at N3. This Finnish unit has the assault fire capability, which will allow a fire with 4 firepower. The modifier will be +1, night conditions. 3, the Finns do not suffer from covering, is 6 + 1, 7, which would be a pin test check, which Jim ignores. At the end of the advancing fire phase, the markers that provide gunflash are eliminated. Rout phase. Soviets at 26L4 to L5 in low crawl. The Finns should have started this phase. 26J3 to K3. The Finnish leader with broken morale in 26M1 into foxhole. 27M9 to M10. Advance phase. Finnish units move 1 hex. Close combat phase. None of the units qualify to gain the concealment marker. Alright friends, with the start of the rally phase of the 4th turn of the Soviets, with the Soviet units in the vicinity of the Finnish positions. Apparently, the Finns will give up the defense of the objective hex in 26S3 and will focus on the defense of hex M1. The Soviets are certainly one step away from conquering the objective in 26S3 as they have a squad in R3. The situation in 26M1 is more complicated, as the Finnish units are concentrated in this region in a privileged elevated position. In addition, a valuable defensive position was built by the Finns, Foxhole, which will make the task of the Soviets even more difficult. Soviet rally phase of the 4th turn. Wind change. 5.2 No wind change. Soviet unit attempts to auto-rally at 26N3 with the modifiers of +4, the aim marker, +1, auto-rally. 6 + 5, 11, morale is not recovered, and the DAIM marker can be removed. Soviet unit attempts to rally with the leader 9-1. The modifiers will be +4, DAIM, -1, leader. 3 + 3, 6, the squad's morale is recovered. Let's move on to the Finns starting with the leader in hex 26M1. The modifiers will be +4, DAIM, +1, auto-rally. 8 + 5, 13, morale is not recovered, and the DAIM marker can be removed. The Finns can attempt the rally without the help of leaders. The squad at 26K3 will attempt the auto-rally with the modifiers of +4, DAIM, +1, auto-rally. 3 plus 5, 18, squad recovers morale. Squad autorally attempt at 27 M10 with modifiers plus 4, DAIM, plus 1, autorally. 3 plus 5, 8, morale is recovered. Prep fire phase. Soviet units will attempt to launch Starshell. The first attempt will be from the leader 9-1 in Hex 26L5, who will attempt to launch the Starshell on the Finnish unit in 26L1, to which he has line of sight 4 hexes away. To be successful, a result on the roll of 1 die less than or equal to 4 is required. 3. Success. With this method of launching, the Starshell will suffer a deviation equal to half the value of the white die with the fractions rounded up. 2.3, and the Starshell is deposited on Hex 26J2. This Starshell launch is extremely auspicious, as it illuminates a large part of the Finnish defensive positions, which will not be able to fire on Soviet units that are not in illuminated hexes or in hexes with gun flash. Soviet leader 8-0 on 2707 then tries to launch a Starshell on Hex 26P9 from 3 hexes away. With this launch method, in case of success, the Starshell will suffer a deviation from the value of the white die. 1. Success. 2.6, and the Starshell will be deposited exactly on the hex where the already launched Starshell was deposited. Movement phase. Aerosan at 26G10 starts the movement and moves to 26Q5, where it stops with the vehicle coverage arc facing the direction Q4R4. Aerosan at 26G10 starts the movement and moves to Hex 26P4 with the coverage arc facing P3Q4. Aerosan at 27B8 moves towards Hex 27G7, where it suffers an attempted attack by the anti-tank rifle at 27M10 at 6 hexes, requiring 10 or less to hit the Aerosan. The modifiers will be +2, moving target, +1, target size, +1, modifier for night conditions. Therefore, a result of 6 or less will be necessary to hit the target. 6-1, the target is not hit and the Aerosan progresses to 27J7 with the arc of coverage facing J8K8. Half squad from R3 to S3 in assault movement, conquering one of the 2 victory points of this battle, removing the skis when performing this maneuver. The Finns in 26Q3 fire on the Soviet units with 4 firepower. The modifiers will be +2, wooden house, +1, night condition hindrance. 7 + 3, 10, failure. New firing, subsequent first fire, with 2 firepower +3. 9 + 3, 12, new failure. Half squad in 1937-06 becomes CX and moves to 26P9. In this hex they suffer an attack from squad 548 in 26M1 with 4 firepower -2, FFMO, FFNM, +1, hindrance due to night conditions. 9-1, 8, failure, and the Soviets can move to 27Q10. Soviets at 27N6 become CX and move to N7, spending 3 movement factors. This movement should be preceded by the roll of dice to assess the possibility of straying, as this unit does not present conditions that exempt it from the possibility of straying, line of sight to an enemy unit in good order, adjacent or in an illuminated hex, among others. In the movement from 27 N7 to N8, this unit descends 1 elevation level spending 1 movement factor. Since this unit is using skis, it gains a bonus of 2 movement factors when descending this elevation and can move to 27-010. Stacking at 27-07 moves to 08. This movement should also have been preceded by the assessment of possible strain. From this hex it moves to hex 2601. Attack from the Finnish squad above the foxhole with 2 firepower, halved, concealed enemy, +2, FFMO, FFNAM, -1, night conditions hindrance. 9-1, 8, fail. Firing from the squad in the foxhole with 4 firepower halved, concealed enemy, -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, night conditions hindrance. 2-1, 1 unit killed in action, to be chosen randomly, while the other will have its morale broken. The squad is eliminated and the leader has his morale broken. 27K8 to L9. In this hex it suffers a subsequent first fire from the Finns at 27 M10 with 4 firepower with the modifiers +2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, night conditions hindrance. 11-1, 10, fail. Squad 6 to 8 from L7 to M9. In this hex it suffers a risky final protective fire from the Finns at 27 M10. In this attack mode, the dice roll serves both as an attack on the Soviets and a normal morale check by the Finns. The attack will be with 4 firepower -1. 5-1, 4, 1 morale check, and the Finns pass the morale check. 9+1, 10, the Soviet squad has its morale broken. Squad from 27 L7 to N9. In this hex they suffer a subsequent first fire from the Finns in the foxhole with 2 firepower -1. 5-1, 4, 1 morale check. 3+1, 4, the Soviet squad passes. Final protective fire from 27 M10 with 4 firepower -1. 3-1, 2, it will be a reduction of the squad to half squad followed by 2 morale checks. 4+2, 6, the half squad passes. 27K7 to N9. In this hex it suffers the attack of 1 residual fire -2, FFMO, FFNAM. 6-2, 4, normal morale check, and the squad loses concealment. 4, the squad passes the normal morale check. The Finns will try a new final protective fire from 27 M10. 5-1, 4, 1 morale check. 11+1, 12, and the Soviets have their morale broken. This Finnish squad really surprised, as it broke the morale of at least 2 Soviet squads and reduced a third to half squad, against all odds. 27 H7 to K9. Cloaking from 26 N3 to N2. The Finnish squad in 26 M9 cannot fire on the Soviets in N2 because they are in an illuminated hex and have no line of sight to the Soviets, even if they are in a hex adjacent. 26 L5 to N2. Stacking from 26 J4 to K5. This hex is attacked from 26 K3 with 4 firepower -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, night hindrance. 6-1, 5, 1 morale check. 5 plus 1, 6, the leader passes. There is a possibility of activating the German sniper. 8 plus 1, 1 morale check, -1, leader, is 8 and the Soviet squad has its morale broken. 5, the German sniper is not activated. The leader 8 minus 1 goes to 26L5. 26D to 2I9. Defensive fire phase. No actions. Advancing fire phase. Soviet units in 26N to fire on the Finnish squad in 26M9 with 8 firepower. The Soviets have the property of assault fire, doubled to 16 because it is a point-blank shot, +1, height advantage, -1, leader. 11, pin test check. 6, Finnish squad passes. 26S 3 fires on Q2 with 1 firepower +1, height advantage. 4 plus 1, 5, pin test check. 3, Finns pass. Aerosan at 26P4 fires on M2 with 2 firepower +1, height advantage. 4 plus 1, 5, normal morale check. 5, Finns pass. Aerosan at 26Q5 fires on Q2 with 2 firepower +1, height advantage. 8 plus 1, 9, fail. Aerosan at 27J7 fires on 26L1 with 2 firepower +1, height advantage. 7 plus 1, 8, fail. Rout phase. 26K5 to L5. 26O1 to 27O10. 27N9 to O10. 27M9 to N9. Advance phase. 27K9 to L9. 27N9 to M10 entering close combat with Finnish squad. Soviet squads in 26N to M2 entering close combat. Leader 9-1 in 26N2 to N3. 27I9 to J9. 27G10 to 26G1. 27O10 to 26O1. Close combat phase. There will be no ambush. In 26N to the Soviets will attack with 11 and the Finns will defend with 5, with a ratio of 2:1, needing at least 7 or less to affect the enemy. The Finns will attack with 5, the Soviet squad 5-7, who will defend with 5, with a ratio of 1:1, needing 5 or less to affect the enemy. Soviet attack 5, success. Finnish attack 7, failure. The Finnish squad is eliminated as well as the close combat marker. On 27M10 the Soviets attack with 3 against 5, with a ratio of 1 to needing 4 to affect the Finns. The Finns attack with 5 against 3, with a ratio of 3 to needing 6 or less to affect the Soviets. Soviets 7 unsuccessful. Finns 7 also unsuccessful, and these units enter melee. Rally phase of the Finnish phase of the 4th turn. Wind change. 5. No wind change. Attempt to auto-rally by the Finnish leader on 26M1 with the +1 modifier auto-rally. 3 plus 1, 4. The leader recovers morale. Attempt to rally the squad on 26L5 with modifiers of +4, Diane, -1, leader. 7 plus 3, 10, morale is not recovered. and the DN marker is removed. Attempt to rally on 26 and 3 with modifiers of +4, DN, -1, leader. 5 + 3, 8, the squad recovers morale. Leader attempts to auto-rally on 27 or 10 with the +4 modifiers, DN, +1, auto-rally. 9 + 5, 14, there is no morale recovery, and the DN marker remains. Prep fire phase. Firing from 26 Q3 on Q4 with 8 firepower, halved, concealed enemy, doubled again for being shot at point blank range, +1, night hindrance. 8 + 1, 9, pin test check, and the half squad loses the concealment marker. 7, the half squad passes. The Finnish squad at 26S1 now has line of sight on known Soviet units in Q1, gaining freedom of movement. They choose to forego the concealment marker and fire on the Soviets at 26 Q1 with 4 firepower +1, night hindrance. 8 + 1, 9, failure. Firing from fire group in 26 M1 on Soviet squads in M2 with 16 firepower and modifiers of +1, night hindrance, -1, leader. 3. One of the squads will be eliminated, to be chosen randomly, and the other will have its morale broken. Squad 6 to 8 is eliminated, and Squad 5 to 7 has its morale broken. Movement phase. 26 L1 to L0 in assault movement. In this hex it suffers an attack from Squad 5 to 7 in 27 L10 with 8 firepower and the modifiers of -1, FFMO, +1, height advantage. 6. 1 morale check. 4. The Finnish squad passes, and there is a possible activation of the Soviet sniper. 3. The Soviet sniper is not activated. 26 K2 to K1 in assault movement. In this hex it is attacked by the squad in 27 J9 with 4 firepower +1, height advantage, -1, FFMO. 10 fail. Firing from the Aerosan at 27 J7 with 4 firepower +1, height advantage, -1, FFMO. 9 fail. 26 K3 in assault movement to L2. Defensive fire phase. Aerosan at 26 Q5 fires on Q2 with 4 firepower +1, height advantage. 7 + 1, 8, fail. Aerosan at 26 P4 fires on the Finns in M1 from 5 hexes away. In this hex it will attack with 4 firepower the squad above the foxhole with the modifier of +1, height advantage, and the squad and the leader inside the foxhole with the modifier of +2. 9. No effects. Firing from 26 Q1 on Q2 with 4 firepower +1, height advantage, +1 by the CX marker. 2 + 2, 4, 1 morale check. 5 + 1, 6, the Finnish squad passes. Firing from 26 and 3 on M1 with 2 firepower -1, leader, +1, height advantage, for squad outside foxhole and 2 more for units inside foxhole. 8. No effect. Firing from 26S3 on Q2 with 2 firepower +1, height advantage. 8 + 1, 9, fail. Advancing fire phase. 27 L10 fires on L9 with 8 firepower, assault fire, +1, night hindrance. 8 + 1, 9, pin test check, dummy marker F is eliminated. 4. Soviet squad passes. 26K1 fires on 27J9 with 4 firepower plus 1, night hindrance. 12, no effect. 26L3 fires on M2 with 8 firepower plus 1, height advantage. 8, normal morale check that Jim ignores. Route phase. 27N9 to O10. 26M2 to N2. Advance phase. 26L2 to M2. 26L10 to 27M10 entering melee. 26K1 to 27L10. 26Q2 to Q1 entering close combat. 26T1 to S1. Close combat. Hex 27M10. Finns attack at a ratio of 3 to 1 needing 8 or less to eliminate the Soviets. Soviets attack one of the squads at a ratio of 1 to 2, needing 4 or less to affect the Finns. Finns 5, Soviets 9, Soviet half squad is eliminated. Hex 26Q1. Finns attack at a ratio of 2 to 1 needing 7 to affect the Soviets. Soviets attack at a ratio of 1 to 2 needing 4 to affect the Finns. Finns 7, Soviets 8. Finns 7, Soviets 8. Soviet half squad is eliminated. Soviets in 26S3 regain the concealment marker. Rally phase of the Soviet phase of the 5th turn. Very well friends, at the end of this 4th turn we will find the Soviet forces in a difficult situation, despite the conquest of one of the two objectives. Due to an absurd error by Jim during the defensive fire phase of the Soviet phase, which allowed the Finnish units in illuminated hexes to attack the Soviets in unilluminated hexes, which is illegal and greatly harmed the Soviet faction. In any case, there are still 2 turns left and the Soviets can reorganize and attack the final objective, X-26M1, achieving the final victory. Soviet rally phase of the 5th round. Wind change. 1-5 no wind change. Soviet squad attempts auto rally at 26N2 with modifiers of +1 auto rally, +4 DA. 3, 2 to 5 +5, 10. Squad does not recover morale and DA marker is not removed due to presence of Finnish units in good order in adjacent hex. Rally attempt at 26L5 with modifier of -1, leader. 3, 1 to 4 -1, 3. Squad recovers morale. Soviet leader attempts auto rally at 27O10 with modifiers of +1 auto rally, +4 DN. 6, 2 to 8 +5, 13. Morale is not recovered and DN marker is removed. Prep fire phase. Soviet will attempt to launch Starshell. Leader 8-1 at 26L5 will attempt to launch a Starshell on the unit's Finnish squads in 26M1 that are within its line of sight 5 hexes away, needing 4 or less to be successful. 4 successful. With this Starshell launch method, there will be a 1 hex deviation in its positioning to be determined randomly. 4, 3 and the Starshell will be deposited over hex 27M10. Aerosan 27J7 will fire on the Finns in 26M1 with 4 firepower with the modifiers of +1, height advantage, for the Finnish unit in 27L10. 2, 4 to 6 +1, 7, pin test check. 11, the Finnish squad is pinned. Squad 5 to 7 in 27L9 fires on the Finnish stack in the adjacent hex with 8 firepower plus 1, hindrance due to night conditions. 6. It's a duck. Aerosan at 26P4 fires on the Finnish stack at M2 with 4 firepower plus 1, height advantage, -1, leader. 4 plus 1, 5, normal morale check. 8, leader is pinned. 8, squad is pinned. Squad 5 to 7 at 27J9 fires on the Finnish stack at 26M1 with 4 firepower. The modifiers will be +1, hindrance for night conditions. 4 plus 1, 5, 1 morale check. 5, the first squad passes. 11 plus 1, 12, the second squad breaks above the ELR and is reduced to squad 447 second class. Movement phase. Squad 6 to 8 from 26N5 to R5. Stacking at 26L5 to L3. Aerosan from P5 over R5. Half squad moves from 2601 to N1 in assault movement. In this hex they suffer an attack from the squad below the foxhole at 26M1 with 8 firepower health, hidden target, +1, night hindrance, -1, FFMO, -1, leader. Therefore the fire is 4 firepower -1. 8 -1, 7, pin test check. 8. The unit should be pinned, which Jim ignores, and, in addition, the concealment marker should be removed from the Soviets. Subsequent first fire with 2 firepower -1. 8 -1, 7, failure. Attack from the squad above the foxhole with 8 firepower halved by the concealment marker +1, night hindrance, -1, FFMO. 5. 1 morale check and the concealment marker is finally eliminated. 6 plus 1, 7, the half squad should be pinned, which Jim once again ignores. Subsequent first fire with 4 firepower without modifiers. 6, normal morale check. 7, again the half squad should be pinned and Jim once again ignores. Squad in 26Q to fires on the Soviet half squad with 4 firepower -1, FFMO. The +1 modifier for the height advantage no longer exists because the half squad ascended to this hex under the Finns' line of sight. 10 -1, 9, failure. Subsequent first fire with 2 firepower -1, FFMO. 6 -1, 5, pin test check which Jim ignores defensive fire phase. Fire from 26L1 on 27L10 with 7 firepower reduced to 3.5 due to the Finns being pinned, doubled again to 7 due to the point-blank fire. Fire will be 6 firepower +1 for night hindrance. 6 plus 1, 7, normal morale check. 11, the Soviet squad breaks. Fire from 27M10 on J9 with 4 firepower +1, night hindrance. 8 plus 1, 9, unsuccessful. Advancing fire phase. Half squad in 26N9 fires with 1 firepower on the units in the hex with the foxhole. 3 plus 1 for height advantage. 4. Normal morale check for the squad above the foxhole. 3 plus 2, 5. Pin test check for the units under the foxhole. 5 plus 1, 6. The squad passes. Both units pass the pin test check. Route phase. 26N2 for N3. 27:10 to 26:01. Fins from 26M to 2M1. 27M10 to 26L1. Advance phase. Huff squad in 26N1 to hex with pinned leader in M to entering close combat. 27J9 to K10. 26R3 to S3. 26L3 to L2. Close combat phase. Soviet will attack at a 2-1 ratio needing 7 or less to affect Finnish leader. Finnish leader is pinned and can attack with only 0.5 at a 1-4 ratio needing 3 or less to affect Soviets. Both dice rolls result in 8 and units enter melee. Starshell illumination and retreat and squad 6 to 8 in 26S3 regains concealment marker. Rally phase of Finnish phase of 5th turn. Wind change. 6, 3, 9, no wind change. The result of the colored die is 6. There will be a change in the night vision range determined by the result of the white die. With the result of 3, the NVR is reduced from 5 hexes to 4 hexes. Finnish squad's rally attempt in 26M1 with the modifiers of +4, DN, -1, leader. 7 + 3, 10, the squad does not recover morale and the DN marker is removed. Auto-rally attempt in 26L1 with the modifiers of +4, DN, +1, auto-rally. 9 + 5, 14, failure. Soviet leaders auto-rally attempt in 2601 with the modifiers of +4, DN, +1, auto-rally. 3 + 5, 8, the leader recovers morale and will be able to assist the Soviet squads in recovering morale with the modifier of +4, DN. The two squads do not recover morale and one of them has the DN marker removed. Attempt to rally the squad at 26N3 with the help of the leader with the modifiers of +4, DN, -1, leader. 7 + 3, 10, unsuccessful and the DN marker is removed. Prep fire phase. The Finnish leader 9-1 will try to launch a starshell at 26P4. 5, unsuccessful. Firing from the units at 26M1 on the Soviets at L2 with 8 firepower +1, night hindrance, -1, leader. 7, 1 morale check. 9 + 1, 10, the leader has his morale broken. 7 + 1, 8, the squad also has its morale broken. 27L10 fires on K10 with 12 firepower +1, night conditions. 9 + 1, 10, failure. 27M10 fires on K10 with 4 firepower +1, night hindrance. 3 + 1, 4, 1 morale check. 6 + 1, 7, the Soviet squad should be pinned but Jim considers it as broken morale. Movement phase. 26Q1 to T1. Defensive fire phase. Firing from 26L3 against M1 with 7 firepower reduced by half due to the fact that the squad is pinned. Firing will be with 2 firepower +1, height advantage, for the squad above the foxhole and 2 more, foxhole, for the units inside the foxhole. 8, unsuccessful. Aerosan at 27J7 fires on the Finns at 26K10 with 4 firepower without modifiers. 9, unsuccessful. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. Finnish squad at 26 M1 enters the hex M2 entering melee. 27 L10 to 26 L1. 27 M10 to N10. Close combat phase. The Finns in the hex 26 M9 will attack at a ratio of 3 to 1, needing 8 or less to affect the Soviets. Soviet will attack Finnish squad 547 at a ratio of 1 to 4, needing 3 or less to affect the Finns. Finns 6, Soviets 7. Soviet half squad is eliminated. Soviet rally phase of the 6th turn. Wind change. 5, 6, 11, no wind change. Soviet unit attempted auto rally on 27 L9 with modifiers of +1 auto rally, +4 de-aim, 8 +5, 13, morale is not restored and de-aim marker remains. Soviet leader attempted auto rally on 26 L2 with modifiers +1 auto rally, +4 de-aim. 5 +5, 10, auto rally does not occur and de-aim marker should be removed. Soviet squad attempted rally on 26 N3 with the -1 modifier, leader. 4 -1, 3, the squad recovers morale. The squad attempts to rally with the help of the Soviet leader in 2601 without modifiers. 11 +4, 15, morale is not recovered. The squad 27 L10 will attempt the auto rally with the modifiers of +1 auto rally, +4 de-aim. 3 +5, 8, morale is not recovered and the de-aim marker is removed. Now the Finnish squad in 26 M1 will try to recover morale with the help of the leader 9-1. 4 -1, 3, morale is recovered. Prep fire phase. Aerosan in 26P4 fires on the Finns in M2 with 4 firepower with the +1 modifier, height advantage. 10 +1, 11, no effect. Firing from 26 L2 fires on M2 with 12 firepower +1, height advantage. 4 +1, 5, to morale check. 7 +2, 9, the leader's morale is broken. 4 +2, 6, the squad passes and there is a possibility of activating the Soviet sniper. 4, the Soviet sniper is not activated. At this point, we see that the chances of victory become practically unfeasible, with the chance of conquering the objective at 26 M1 being 0. With this, the Soviets concede victory to the Finns. Despite the Soviets' focus on reaching the proximity of the objectives as quickly as possible, they were unable to obtain the necessary results in the dice roll. An alternative for the Soviets would be to try to launch overruns with the use of aerosans on the Finns to try to advance more quickly. However, one of the victory conditions implies that the Soviets must lose 18 victory points at most. At this point, we have 11 victory points accounted for by the Finns, and each armored aerosan counts as 5 victory points, making this strategy extremely risky. Anyway, let's close this episode and moving on to the next clip, which will be a rematch for the escape of Velikie Luki scenario, with better positioning of the Soviet forces. See you soon, Namaste.